So, Robin, it is toy buying season, and there are so many choices. There are so many ads. There's so much stuff out there. I mean, some of the stuff isn't that great. But what if there was an alternative? What if it was a toy that also encouraged creativity, had educational benefits? What if it was something that you and your kids could really enjoy and learn from?
Yeah, and what if it had no plastic and was 100% recyclable? Playper comes in 3 steps. You pop out these pieces, and kids love this part, and you build these toys. And this is where the STEM learning comes in. Kids learn to follow the instructions, and they learn how to construct a simple toy. And then they play with these toys, and they have silly characters with full and rich and silly backstories.
And we love silliness. We know that. I was really amazed about how durable these toys were. I don't have little kids anymore, but I work with little kids all the time. There is one set that is called the Curious Kingdom Story Starters. I love this. I am going to make use of this in my practice. There are cards that have a person, a place, and a thing. Kids choose the card and then create their own stories. It's about using imagination. It's about developing conversation, about being playful. It has all of the things that really help kids as they're learning and growing. I'll tell you, this is going to be a great tool for me. And I was amazed at how durable these toys are. They're not paper or even flimsy cardboard. They have a beautiful feel and they are amazingly high quality.
Playper has won several awards even in the short time it's existed, including a Gold Mom's Choice Award, a Creative Play of the Year Award, a National Parenting Award, and it's also an accredited STEAM toy. Playper is giving you a special discount to get these adorable toys, and you can get 25% off any order with the promo code Fluster at playper.com. And on top of that, you'll receive free shipping through Christmas.
So go to PLAYPER.com and use code FLUSTER for 25% off with free shipping through December 25th. Your child will love these toys. A lot of what we do when we're trying not to disappoint people is all this storytelling in our head that makes us feel like we can't tolerate what other people will think of us.
Welcome to Season 6 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we talk about a family's anxiety and all the big feelings, too. We tackle the serious stuff without being too serious, and I'm your co-host, Robin. I'm Lynn's sister-in-law, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, speaker, mom, and author, and I've been a therapist for over 30 years. Parenting can be a Flusterclux, and I'm here to help you find your way. I'll give you concrete steps to take and the words to say.
Okay, Lynn, this is a really big bonus episode on, I think, one of the most important skills we can learn as adults and model for our kids.
I agree. This is a big one because if you can't do it, you're going to end up in all sorts of messes.
We talk about this skill with each other all the time.
Yeah. Remember, you said a phrase to me, gosh, so many years ago. You said that you say to yourself, let me disappoint you.
Well, I didn't make that up. I saw some speaker say that, and I'm afraid I don't remember who she was. But she said, like the song, let me entertain you, let me disappoint you. So I didn't have the knowledge or the framework to put it in context the way we can talk about it now. But it made me aware in that very moment, the concept of disappointing people was never modeled, never praised, never discussed, really. If you disappoint people, that's a bad thing. And that's how most people think of it. But we're going to turn the tables on the perception of this skill because it's essential.
Right. You cannot set boundaries with people. You cannot take care of what you have to take care of. You can't function very well if your goal is to never disappoint somebody. And here's the truth about it. If you take on too much, if you can't say no, if you don't have good boundaries about your obligations, if you are packing your calendar, packing your schedule, you are going to disappoint people. For me, disappointing people either happens sooner or later. The later disappointment is the result of, I'm agree to do all these things, and then I'm either going to cancel at the last minute because I realize I can't do it, or I agree to do all these things and I'm going to do a crappy job, which is going to disappoint somebody. If you can think about this as you are going to disappoint people in a more of a thoughtful, controlled, planned out, healthy way versus the disappointing that comes from you're a mess and now you're dropping the ball. That's worse, in my opinion. This last minute chaotic people like, oh my God, I can't believe she didn't come through, versus upfront saying that's really not something that I can take on.
That's right. I would say especially we're here at the end of the year. We're during the holiday season. I'm sure there are plenty of listeners who are moms and have jobs and have kids, and they're completely overwhelmed and burnt out, possibly because it's about a schedule thing too. They have all these commitments and they have expectations. They don't want to disappoint the family about certain holiday experiences. They can't disappoint at work. And then they can't disappoint in their community if it's a church obligation or a school obligation. I'm pulled in every direction and I don't know how to disappoint people because I'm also a people pleaser. Let's talk also about the micro moments in our personal relationships, where if you're still so afraid of disappointing someone, how that interferes with your intimacy with someone too. Keep everything comfortable and keep everyone happy, and you don't want them mad at you. Talk about that a little bit.
So if your goal is to not disappoint somebody, generally you have to start being untruthful. You have to start telling lies, either blatant lies of, oh yes, I'd love to do that, I'll be there, or lying in a more intimate way or more micro way where you're saying to somebody, no, that doesn't bother me, right? No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. And you're saying that on the outside when on the inside, you're like, it's not fine.
Yes, exactly. That's totally the phrase. Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
We've talked many times. And in the past, when we talked about setting boundaries, when we talked about thinking about your schedule, and I talk about this in the anxiety audit, the way that we get into this place is that we see our role, we see our value, we see our worth as making sure that everybody's happy with us, that everybody admires us for how much we've been able to do. Except I will tell you, if your goal is to not disappoint somebody, resentment is right there. And it is building and building and building. I just had an experience with this professionally where I agreed to do something that I really didn't want to do. I decided to do it. And the event took so much planning and so much time. And the whole time I was saying to myself, see, you should have said no. You should have said no. You should have said no. But I didn't want to disappoint somebody.
We had a people-pleasing episode recently. And as you were explaining this pattern, all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, we're talking about you and your pattern. Like this is like a pattern for you, for sure. So many people relate to this. I do think I can disappoint people more easily than you can, but maybe not. Maybe because I heard that phrase so many years ago, I started putting it into practice.
No, I know you can because you have been a model for me of saying no to things. Sometimes when I was first getting to know you, when you would say no to something, I'd be like, what did she just do? Right? But now I can see like, oh, that's really good. She doesn't need to do that. And it sort of brings us to this place also about this all or nothing thinking that if you disappoint somebody, that means that you're a bitch. If you disappoint somebody, that means you're uncaring. It means you're selfish. It means you're not thinking about other people.
That's what I actually wanted to talk about is after you put these skills into practice, it doesn't look like maybe what you fear it looks like. So let's take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, raise your hand if any of this sounds like you. You follow all the latest new health, supplement, and wellness advice, restrict all these things from your diet. You're doing everything you can to try and improve your health.
Yeah, you listen to all these health-obsessed folks, but when was the last time you went to an actual good doctor, like in real life, with real medical experience, with a stethoscope, with information about how to help you get and stay healthy? If you have to think about it, it might be time to head to ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app where you can find amazing doctors and book appointments online.
We're talking about booking appointments with thousands of top-rated patient-reviewed doctors and specialists, and you can filter specifically for the ones who take your insurance or are located near you, and they treat almost any condition under the sun.
No more wading through who takes your insurance and who doesn't. I have young adult children that are looking for doctors, and this is such a helpful service for them and to get what they need. So go to ZocDoc.com/Fluster and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today.
That's ZocDoc.com/Fluster. ZocDoc.com/Fluster.
Okay, we're back.
So one of the things that I think is really important to discuss, and you can speak to your personal experience, is that if you have a history of people pleasing or you have a fear of disappointing people, what that outcome will be when you say no and when you don't do something. You create this fearful scenario of something that you're trying to avoid. But guess what? It's never as bad as you think it is. And the more you do it, the more you realize nobody cares. I mean, most of the time. Sometimes people do care, and it's okay if they're disappointed. But it's easier, and it gets easier with practice.
Well, the other thing about it, too, is that when you disappoint somebody, you do sort of catastrophize about what they're going to think of you, and they're going to make all these judgments about you and that kind of stuff. And recognizing that you really can't control the story that other people will have about you setting a boundary is really, really helpful. If I say no to something, there's a reason I'm saying no to it. And even when I say yes to things that I don't want to say yes to, there's a reason I should have said no to it. And where I can get trapped is that I begin to create a story about how they're going to take my no. I begin to create a story about what they're going to think of me. I begin to sort of expand on this idea that there's something bigger than there is. Now, maybe they do create a story. Maybe they don't. Maybe they say, well, she's pretty busy, or I don't even know. But that's the point, is that a lot of what we do when we're trying not to disappoint people is all this storytelling in our head that makes us feel like we can't tolerate what other people will think of us. Our reputation of being this, I can get everything done, or I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings. That's a really powerful driver for people who get themselves overscheduled, who get themselves so stressed out.
I actually realized this happened to me this week. I had a business meeting with a new colleague, and she had requested time to meet with me to tell me something. And I didn't know what it was. What she actually ended up telling me was like, oh, okay. I shrugged like, great, no big deal. And then she said, I lost sleep over telling you this. And I was like, why? There was absolutely no negative thought on my part. But here she told a story that I was going to judge her. You just said this earlier. When people hear you up front say no, you're actually creating trust with them because they know that they can count on you for knowing yourself and how that makes them feel safer in that relationship too.
I like that you use the phrase that then people can trust you, because when you can't disappoint people or you can't tolerate disappointing people, you become less and less genuine. You become less and less trustworthy. The other thing that happens is that when you're afraid to disappoint people and you agree to do things you don't want to do, things that don't work for a variety of reasons, believe me, that oozes out. And so you're not presenting yourself like you think you're presenting yourself. This thing that I agreed to do that I should have said no to, that then took up much more time than I had anticipated. I was not very pleased with all of that. And every time it took more time than I wanted it to take.
You were mad at yourself.
Mad at myself, but also more and more irritated with the people that were taking up the time. When I'm working with people professionally, and I hope personally too, but when I'm working with people, I want to bring the best parts of my personality to that interaction, not the worst part. And when I have said yes to something that I don't want to do, I guarantee you I can fake it a little bit, but I'm not bringing my best genuine self to it. Not at all.
And let's also step back because obviously you are an exceptionally busy person. So this really shows up for you where people are asking for something from you. And then that gets like tricky to disappoint and say no. But the skill also shows up if you're just telling somebody no about something they can't do either. And that's where parenting comes in.
And one of the things to pay attention to is that if this sort of resonates with you, One of the patterns you might have is that you start off saying no. And then as soon as you pick up on the disappointment, it might be on your kid's face, or it might be your friend going like, oh, really? As soon as you recognize that you're disappointing someone, you start to negotiate. So that's a thing to pay attention to. You know how I like to sort of draw those boxes and talk about what the steps are that lead us into a pattern. So say you asked me to do something and I was like, oh, you know what? That sounds like a great idea, but I'm just not going to be able to fit that in until at least March. And you were like, oh, all right. Oh, and you start conveying your disappointment in me. I'm going to take it personally, right? That's the other thing we do. We take it personally. Then I immediately might start saying, okay, well, let me look at my calendar again.
This is a real life thing that just happened with us. I think we should just be very specific.
Yeah.
If you're a loyal listener, you know that I love the holidays and Lynn doesn't.
Yeah.
So I bought tickets for this historic holiday tour. And I was like, here, come and join us. 3 generations. We're going to go on this holiday tour. And you're like, okay. And then like this week, I was like, hey, did you ever buy that ticket? And you were like, no, and I'm not going. And it was like, okay, cool, no problem. Because we have that kind of relationship. And maybe when we were new sisters-in-law, we had to get here. I'm so grateful that when I ask something of you and that you know, no, I can't do that. Cool. But that also gives me the freedom to ask you because I know you'll be truthful about what you can and can't do.
And I think because you have modeled for me saying no, it's easier for me to say no to you because you know that I say yes when I can say yes. So there's that trust thing again, right? It really is a way to have relationships with people, including your kids, where you can consistently say yes and you can consistently say no, but it's not all this waffling. That's where the problem comes in. But say you asked me to do this thing. I'm trying to think of some holiday thing that I would just want to... Okay, like say, I'm trying to think.
I'm going to have you join some sort of big cookie swap club.
Oh my God. Also, my very good friend that I talk about all the time that I love so much, loves the holidays. She just sent me a text recently. She said, I used to think that I had to change your opinion about this because you were missing out. But she said, I've realized you not loving the holidays is one of the things that I love most about you, but I can't explain why. But she used to have this cookie swap, which was really nice. And she would always say to me, you can come and not bring cookies. If you come and not bring cookies, you can't take cookies, but just come and hang out. It was just a nice gathering of a lot of great women. And one year I decided I would make cookies, which was a big deal for me to make cookies and bring them to the holiday swap. And nobody took my cookies.
I don't know why. I'm just imagining your face when you leave. Did you get to leave with your cookies? Or did you leave them there?
Because I had presented cookies, I could take cookies. But what that means is that people decided they would rather go home with less cookies than my cookies. That's the decision they made. So I do get a lot of reinforcement that this holiday thing is just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, that's a lot of feelings right there. I feel empathy for you. I also find there was like a little bit of a karmic aspect of it too.
Yeah, and also it was oddly satisfying, right? Like, see, I told you. All right, let's just wrap this up with a really concrete tip. And I said it again, but let me reinforce this. If you say no and you see somebody's face fall, if you see somebody feel disappointed, resist the urge to start negotiating. Say no and say, I'm so sorry. I know that disappoints you. That just doesn't work for me, which is the other thing that my friend says, which is such a good boundary that she sets. She'll just say, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. Your job, everybody, during this busy time is set a boundary, disappoint somebody, and then don't backpedal. Because when you backpedal, you will start feeling resentful. You will start feeling like you've compromised in some way. And the long-term impact is not going to be good.
Definitely not. I think I know who does those cookie swaps, and you can tell her I'm available.
Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
If you're a parent, I invite you to join us at the Mindful Mama podcast, where it's all about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. With sometimes hilarious and always thought-provoking experts and friends, at Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm Hunter Clark Fields, and I can't wait to see you there. Listen in to the Mindful Mama podcast.